worked in imaging, like had an MRI showing the insulin needle going into, you know, a pretty lean person and end up actually hitting the muscle tissue. All right, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics, on TRT, on biohacking and male performance. Please subscribe to the channel because, hey, bro, look, I already know you're going to love the content, so just hit the sub button now. And look, you either owe your boy a like or you don't owe your boy a like. You can move on. It depends on if you get this right. So pick heads or tails. I'm going to flip this coin. Let's see what we get. All right, it landed on heads. So look, if you picked heads, you're good to go. You can move on. But if you picked tails, you got it wrong. You owe your boy a like. Who are we? We are Cortex Labs. We're predominantly a male performance company that specializes in globally shipped nootropic stacks. The most prominent of them is the Torque nootropic stack, which you can find in the description of this video. I'm a consultant on nootropics, TRT, erectile dysfunction, energy optimization, and a host of other things. And we also make a few nootropics courses that you can get at livecortex.com, which teach you actually use nootropics and get good results, as well as some downloadable digital guides that are stack ridden and awesome. Also, the new Cortex stack has completed production and will be shipping either later this week or early next week. So look forward to the announcement in the official video for that. Okay, so what I want to do in this video is I want to take us to a video of Derek from NPMD and Greg Doucette, who's a bodybuilder and like YouTuber, talks about TRT, bodybuilding, all this kind of stuff. And, you know, the discussion is on injection frequency with TRT, right? I mean, this is like one of the most kind of controversial or at least like debatable topic on the web relative to TRT. Should you be injecting every day? Should you inject every other day? Is it optimal to do one or the other for libido, for erection quality? Should it be 3.5 days, right? Twice a week? Should it be once a week, right? Are some guys going to do better on once every 2 weeks? Unfortunately, the answer to like all those questions is like yes, 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 and yes, because it's going to be different for different people, right? But I want to kind of talk about the pros and cons. I'll talk about my personal take on testosterone injection frequency and my experience with it. But first, I want to take us to this video and let Derek and Greg talk about it, and then I'll just chime in and give my opinion.
I'm just straight up, I feel freaking amazing, fantastic. Like I feel awesome, but potentially there could be some internal benefits that I'm not aware of that if I did it, say, I mean, I'm not going to do it every day, but if I did it twice a week, it's going to be a little bit better. And so perhaps my SHBG go up a little bit and overall the inside, like just be overall healthier as there's. Okay.
So he touched on something relative to sex hormone binding globulin. Now that's a protein that testosterone is typically bound to, which ultimately the lower your SHBG is, the higher free testosterone you're going to have. However, what a lot of people don't factor into that conversation is that SHBG also is a transport mechanism for bringing androgens to tissues. Don't want it too low, and you don't want it too high, okay? You want it in the middle, and potentially by injecting more frequently, your SHBG will rise a little bit more. And therefore, like the benefit of that is having a more adequate transport to tissues so that you can have the androgenic and anabolic effect at those tissues, all right? So that's just one potential benefit, not really been proven anywhere. Seems to be true in my own lab work and some of my clients' lab work that the more frequently you inject, the higher the SHBG goes to a point. It doesn't go out of control. And you know, what I've seen over the years in consulting guys on TRT is like, you don't want it too low and you don't want it too high. Yeah, that's my take on that. Let's continue.
Less tests being introduced right away that my body has to deal with versus having it introduced twice in a week. That's a little bit easier to react to, kind of like eating one big meal a day versus two. That's a lot less food in your belly at one meal, 3,000 calories versus 1,500 twice. It's just easier for your body to handle that.
Okay, this is a huge point too. Now, here's another pro of injecting. I feel like I'm the guy that's like, you inject more frequently. I'm not, because I know some guys are going to do better with less frequent injections. Here's a pro of injecting more frequently, right? Greg just said it, right? If you inject once a week or even twice a week, you're getting a bolus dose of testosterone. And you don't actually know how your body, your individual body and your individual blood vessels are actually absorbing that testosterone. Now, like on paper, you know, it's 2 to 3 days until it gets to a peak, depending on the dose, and then you start dropping off thereafter. However, that's going to be different for different people. Like if you're an extremely healthy dude with like fully functioning blood vessels, because you've done work on that sort of stuff, you're an advanced level biohacker, then yeah, you're probably going to be absorbing testosterone quicker than, you know, maybe like an overweight sedentary dude that drinks too much. I mean, just because the sheer metabolism of the blood vessels, etc., is better in a healthier person. Like I can tell you for sure, for me, if I inject bolus dose like once a week, I uptake that testosterone and a lot of it relatively quickly. You know, like libido and EQ is absolutely like fucking crazy, but like I can achieve that in, you know, by other means. Then there's additional side effects, like all of the side effects that may or may not or can come along with TRT, especially acne. Like if you're prone to it, like for me personally, injecting even every 3.5 days, like twice a week, acne is kind of unmanageable, right? To the point where I'm like, I'm not really sure I want to take my shirt off at the beach. And I don't love that. Whereas if I'm injecting, you know, I'm injecting every other day, you know, there really is next to no acne and it's kind of manageable and fine. So, you know, that's one benefit. You don't get the bolus dose. If libido and EQ is still good and everything else is like strength, recovery from the gym is still good, then yeah, inject more frequently. Totally fine. Because it may be the case that you have to avoid some of the side effects that come along with TRT.
So perhaps it would be smart for me to split that up.
Yeah, and one thing that might make this an easier, less burdensome process. I don't know if you've ever backloaded insulin syringes and used those for micro injections, but like for me and a lot of people who do TRT more frequently, if you put the oil into an insulin syringe, it is so painless and non-invasive to use like a 1/2-inch insulin pin and do a shallow intramuscular shot. You might even
would it have to be intramuscular? Could you just do sub-Q at this lower level? Because I mean, it's going to be 0.1. Like
it depends. Like if you're talking about into belly fat or into, like,
I've done trend shots with an insulin syringe. So like
you're
I've
so
done a
lean.
lot.
You're so lean that even if like some guys, when they go straight in with an insulin pin to their glute or ventral glute, it is sub-Q just based on body fat. For you, you're so lean, it wouldn't be the case. You'd literally be putting it in stomach fat intentionally to get it sub-Q. So like you could, but you might end up with little oil deposits that are kind of annoying.
Yeah, so they're touching on basically intramuscular or shallow intramuscular versus sub-Q. And yeah, subcutaneous may also be another way to prevent some of these side effects that come along with TRT, like acne, among other things. Overstimulation, like if I'm injecting intramuscularly every 3.5 days, I get overstimulated. My body's like very, very efficiently uptaking this testosterone. You know, it's cleaving off the ester and then I'm getting a good degree of it in my bloodstream. And this is happening relatively quickly, despite what, you know, the literature says it's supposed to do. Bodies are different, right? Like right now, I'm injecting every other day with an insulin pin, shallow IM. And there's actually been a Reddit post or something with a woman who was like worked in imaging, like had an MRI showing the insulin needle going into, you know, a pretty lean person and end up actually hitting the muscle tissue. But hey, that's good for me. Like that's fine for me. And that's a good protocol for me. But look, even every other day, intramuscular or shallow intramuscular injections for some guys, they're still going to get side effects. You get peaks in estradiol that they really don't, you know, care for. And, you know, they may have ultimately more acne. So it may be wise, you know, in that case to still run every other day, but just inject subcutaneously. All right, this conversation's kind of getting hot, so let's continue.
So like my only thing is like the insulin syringe thing is just a way to make it more like, to be honest, I prefer doing like every other day with an insulin syringe than doing a harpoon once a week. And I can achieve steadier levels. And, you know, people will complain and say like, oh, you've already hit steady state after 5 weeks on Test or whatever, so there's no difference. It's like, this is for people adhering to the medication, is the enanthate ester, and using it, you know, once a week or something. You can achieve like acceptable levels. It's not necessarily optimal though. Like if you want actually like very steady levels, if you're doing once a week with 125, you're like, or 120, you're like, boom, boom,
right,
versus literally like this.
Right. And so this is another benefit of the more frequent injections, because if you are injecting less frequently, then you are exposed to bolus doses of both testosterone and ultimately the conversion to estradiol and the conversion to DHT. So like how that has an effect on your mood from day to day, how your energy is from day to day, obviously libido, erection quality, these things, but some of the side effects, acne, overstimulation, these kinds of things. Yeah, it's just some people are going to be more sensitive than other people in relation to testosterone side effects, or just like what it feels like to have a bolus dose of testosterone coming into the system. And they're going to need to inject more frequently to avoid that, but to still get all the benefits of TRT, right? And have like pretty stable levels. Like, you know, the levels aren't going to fluctuate all that much. You'll still get a minor peak if you're injecting every day or every other day, but you know, you're not going from 800 to 1250 or 800 to 1450 nanograms per deciliter total test, which is what you kind of what that looks like if you're injecting less frequently. You're doing these bolus doses, you're jumping up substantially. Some guys are going to need, though, like the discussion on that, adequate androgen receptor saturation, like at high levels, in order to get symptomatic relief from TRT. Like if you're one of those guys, like you may need to inject less frequently. This is why this is confusing, and I'm not going to give you like a straight answer because this is going to be different for different people, man. You got to figure out which frequency works for you, where you feel good, libido EQ is good, you have minimal side effects, minimal acne, estradiol is like in the right place. I mean, if you're injecting once a week, yeah, estradiol is going to peak, you know, day 3, day 4 of the bolus injection, estradiol is going to reach its peak, and it's going to be super physiologic, right? It's more than likely going to be far higher than the LabCorp 42 picograms per milliliter top of the reference range, or the Quest, like Quest is like 29 picograms per milliliter. It can be above that, right? And you know, you're looking at 45, 50, 60 maybe. And yeah, I mean, there are side effects that come along with high estrogen for some guys, for most guys actually. And so injecting more frequently is a way to reduce not the total amount of estradiol you're going to have in your system. You don't just like inject more frequently and suddenly that drops your estradiol. It doesn't do that. It may drop it from a peak that you had from injecting a bolus, but it's not going to drop the estradiol. It doesn't do that. What it does is stabilize the estradiol so there really aren't many peaks. So the tissues and your body and your own internal response kind of gets used to this steady state of estradiol. There's no major peaks. You don't really get itchy nipples and bloating and some of the other estradiol associated side effects. All right, let's continue.
Yeah. So when I was in the 700s, I did that test, like, I don't know, it was like 3 days after the shot, but maybe 6 days after, maybe I'm at 600. Who knows where I'm at? You know, I'm testing it at pretty much the peak level.
Yeah. But even just above and beyond just what is, you know, your level at the trough and is it acceptable? It's also about like this disproportionate high free test that your brain and heart is dealing with, like all in one fucking massive spike. Those tiny little needles is actually like superior in a, like, even looking like, I don't like shooting shit. So like using a smaller needle, allowing me to get away with that is worth it in itself, as well as the benefit I get potentially medically from stable levels, not dealing with disproportionately low SH.
Yeah, and he makes a good point, like about like, I don't know, what cardiac function, right? Cardiac function, not necessarily neurological function, because if anything, you're going to be like, you know, stimulating the expression of tyrosine hydroxylase, you're making more dopamine ultimately, which is typically or generally a good thing with bolus doses of testosterone. But yeah, I mean, you know, who's to say that higher bolus doses at once is great for, you know, cardiac function. Also, let's talk about insulin pins. So yeah, I mean, and I've gone back and forth with it really. Like I tried to go very traditional and use like what was ultimately a 5/8 inch needle. I've ran 1 inch needles as well, just to kind of see, you know, how it felt, and went true intramuscular, right? Whether it was my delt or my quad, you know, or actual glute, like not ventral glute, actual glute. And, you know, there was a difference in like deep intramuscular versus shallow intramuscular and versus subcutaneous. And the difference predominantly was more acne, higher, quicker peaks, which frankly overstimulated me. Like if I was going intramuscular, even every 3.5 days, I get pretty overstimulated. My body's very efficient cleaving off the ester, getting the testosterone into my tissues. And I absolutely feel like I've drank too much coffee or too much energy drinks or something. It's not a comfortable place to be for me personally. And yeah, it is convenient. It's also less scary for those of you that are like, you know, you don't like needles, you don't like big needles. Like I was fine with an intramuscular injection. Frankly, I'd rather just do it all once a week. Like that's one bolus intramuscular injection once a week. I would love to do that. My body just doesn't like doing that. So, you know, yeah, subcutaneous injections or even shallow intramuscular injections, which do hit the muscle if you're lean enough. Either way, you know, those small insulin pins are far easier to deal with. Yeah. Is it tedious to inject every day or every other day? Absolutely. I'd rather do it once every 2 weeks. I'd love that. However, you know, you're going to get a lot of benefit from it, not the least of which is the fact that you've got these smaller needles and it's like easier, you know, it pinches a little bit, but it's really not a problem. And if you're doing it every other day, like totally fine, not a big deal. You put the testosterone in the syringe, get it in there, alcohol swab everything so you don't end up, you know, with an infection, and you go kill it. All right, I don't know if there's anything else they have to say, but let's continue and see.
Or dealing with the potential ramifications of a low SHBG and that chronic elevation in androgens that's like, there's like a few different things that maybe it does nothing, but at best it potentially does a lot of good things.
Yeah, I see. It's marginal gains to go from every 2 weeks, like the endocrinologist wanted, to every week. There's huge gains from doing that, and then maybe twice a week, a little bit more, and then every day. Is it really much better than every 2 days? Debatable. Same as eating frequency. Certainly, eating 3 times a week is better than once a day. Or
yeah, I mean that's going to depend on how you respond to it, right? Like some guys are going to go every other day, sub-Q. And it's almost right, but still they're a little overstimulated, or maybe they're getting, super physiologic peaks of estradiol or estradiol peaks that they're not really loving, and they don't want to take an AI because it makes them feel crappy. And then they got to switch to every other day. Every day. And still libido, EQ, strength, recovery, sleep, general energy throughout the day is still good, and that just suits them. See, here's the issue. Like, you can't get dogmatic about it and say this is better, this is better, this is better, because I've seen all ends of the spectrum, like seeing real people looking at their labs and listening to accurate reporting of their symptoms. And some guys, whether I would like to have them on every third day or every other day injections, they're just gonna do better, they're gonna feel better, and everything's gonna work great, and their labs look remarkable on everyday injections. I'm not advocating that, because some guys are going to need that bolus dose of testosterone and the high saturation at the androgen receptors and the high milligram release ultimately of testosterone. And they may even do better on slightly higher estradiol than, what their baseline is, compared to a guy who's just going to do better on less frequent injections. So the moral of the story is, my injection frequency is every other day. It's shallow intramuscular. I've done all kinds of things and landed there, so that works well for me. I have tried every day with a subcutaneous injection, and that works fine too, although I feel less energy generally, because I think there's, it's a slower distribution of testosterone. I can say for sure that, if I inject less frequently, I get more acne, and I do not like that. I'm a young man. Like, I don't want acne on my back. It's summertime here in Pittsburgh. And, across my many years of giving advice and giving consulting and giving targeted protocols and helping people fix their protocols on TRT, like, everybody's different, right? But I have seen guys eliminate side effects, estradiol side effects, high DHT side effects, acne side effects, bloating side effects, over excessive stimulation side effects by injecting more frequently. And I'm not trying to tell you that that's the best way to go, because it's going to be different between different guys. The purpose of this video is kind of go through the pros and the cons of injecting more frequently versus less frequently. There really is no answer. If I could give everybody like a cookie cutter protocol that I think would work, 150 milligrams injected every other day, do it either shallow IM or subcutaneous, and have an AI around if your estradiol gets above range far enough where you start to have symptoms, or if it's above range and you don't have symptoms and you want to get it between that 20 and 30 mark. That'd be like the best cookie cutter suggestion that I would make. But again, even that may not be optimal for some people. All right, as I said in the beginning of the video, I'm a consultant on TRT, a bunch of other things. You can find all my specialties, here on this screen or down in the description of this video or at livecortex.com. But yeah, TRT Protocol Optimization is one of the things I've spent a lot of time doing over more than a half decade now, right? So I've seen everything under the sun relative to like, well, how do you adjust the frequency or the dose or manipulate the aromatase inhibitor, or manipulate your lifestyle, diet, etc., to get adequate libido, erection quality, androgenicity, as well as, how do you manipulate all those things to get ideal strength, recovery, energy, sleep, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're in a place where you're not getting adequate therapeutic response from TRT, book a call with me, book a consultation. We actually have a full-on TRT protocol optimization consultation, like directly devoted to that topic. You can book me in under a minute at livecortex.com. Again, if you want access to a very, very powerful nootropic stack, like not for the faint of heart, my friends, like if you want real stimulation and real mood benefits and like a really lively brain, like a clean stimulant that just does not go away, like it onsets, you start to feel amazing, brain functions great, and it lasts a good degree of the day, go buy the Torque nootropic stack. It's the most purchased nootropic stack on the internet for a reason. Like, people love the stack. Down in the description of this video, go buy a bottle. It'll ship to you in a couple days, and you'll have it to try it. Lastly, as I said in the beginning, the Cortex stack, the new Cortex stack, which I don't know if some of you picked this up, it's literally behind me, blurred out for a good reason. We're going to be doing like an official reveal for it, an official launch for the product, either again this week or early next week. It's finished. I've already got bottles in hand, and the lot, like the big batch, is shipping right now to Georgia, which is our fulfillment center, to be shipped to customers. So look forward to the mighty new formula Cortex nootropic stack, which is launching epically soon. I'll do a video here. We'll send an email out to the email list, and I'll do an official reveal and explanation and breakdown of the stack when that time comes, which should be any day now. All right, everybody. Been a pleasure hanging out with you. Hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you on the next one.